Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Agency Automators. I'm one of your hosts, Noah Lerner. I'm here with my Patriot friend, Jordan Chu. What's up?
Hello,
You got a
hello.
call today?
Yeah, I'm battling a cold,
Oh, bummer.
so I'm drinking lots of tea.
I'm incredibly stoked to have Dan Leibson from Local SEO Guide with us to talk all about how they use automation and all kinds of crazy tools. We're going to get into machine language. We're going to get into, machine learning, NLP. We're going to talk about how they use all kinds of different tools, whether it's node-based tools, Python-based tools. He just released a crazy cool tool that we're going to get into. Dan, how's it going today?
Awesome, man. Awesome. I was just in Austin Tuesday through Thursday. So in Austin is way colder than I thought it would be. So it's nice to be back in SoCal.
I'm trying to come to grips with which I like more, your hair now or your hair in the headshot.
Oh, it's way longer now.
So for folks who don't know, can you give us insight into local SEO guys, like what your niche is, how you help huge enterprise firms, and what you're really stoked on in the next year or two?
Yeah, Local SEO Guide is a boutique SEO consultancy. You wouldn't really guess it from the name, but we primarily do like enterprise and startup consulting. Most of the local component either comes from like multi-location retail companies or traditionally like directories and other local organic sites that are trying to rank outside of local pack results. So, we have like a very technical SEO and analytics based kind of SEO background in our shop. Very different from the kind of like GMB based focus you would kind of think of in terms of traditional local search.
Cool. I think that's really neat. And what have you been seeing in the past 6 months that's been impacting your clients in a way that might or might not be getting a lot of press in terms of new algorithm changes or new posts that we're seeing in Webmaster's blog?
We haven't done anything new, man. We're just like keeping calm and carrying on. In all honesty, this like whole new thing about the deduping of featured snippets has a potential to be really impactful to a segment of our business, only because we do a lot of work with like B2B SaaS companies and kind of startups like that. And so like the way that their content works, like double dipping on featured snippets or like ranking in position 5 and getting a featured snippet because you can't get above like government entities in positions like 1 or 2, right? Like has been a really solid strategy, but it's really early to even kind of comment there, right? Like it's only a week old. I don't really have any meaningful even data to talk about where I would want to kind of pivot our content strategies.
Cool. Let's talk a little bit about automation. So in the pre-call, what I heard was a lot of tension around how you approach automation and putting a lot of thought into like when it makes sense and when it doesn't. Can you jump into how you evaluate opportunities and whether to go down one path or another?
Yeah, so I used to, I'll kind of get there in a roundabout way, but like the first half of my career, I worked in-house for like DTC startups and stuff like that, hence the technical SEO and analytics kind of background.
Yep.
And my first gig and only gig agency side before this was a scalable local SEO shop where the leadership team was constantly fixated on bright, shiny new automation examples and would constantly be pushing development priorities away from like kind of core business objectives towards like shiny new automation principles. And so as a result, it really impacted product development and like made us choose like automation paths over like new kind of core products that we could launch and monetize, right? Like, and it really, I thought it was really problematic there. And the way that we approach automation is very particular around like issues of scale or things that are like meaningful bottlenecks of SEO operations, right? Like, so the reason that the tool we'll talk about later happened is, I would say that like we like at a kind of core level, we think about like where can we be creating meaningful value out of automation? Like where can we implement some piece of automation in order to make a meaningful value add to allow like an analyst to be able to take it and deliver a better insight rather than like what saves us time, right? Like tons of SEO is like gathering and collating data, just as like an example. And so if you can do all of that via automation, then it lets the person that you're paying to do the like analysis and drive the strategy use their brain for that rather than, VLOOKUPs and joining data tables together and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So for folks who don't understand, when you're talking about scale, you're dealing with scale unlike what almost anyone else in our industry deals with, right? Like, what's the range of locations that you're dealing with for different clients?
Yeah, so it's not even locations. Just as like an example, we're doing a content strategy for an electric scooter company. And so one of the things that I wanted to do is figure out what like the content looks like in like the opportunity looks like in the electric scooter space. And so to do that, it's like crunching I looked at 1 million keywords, just like straight up. And so the process of like, how do you get those 1 million keywords? Where do you get them from? How do you pare that down to something useful, right? That's what I'm talking about in terms of like, how to figure out the strategy. It's not even like the scale of this site or business like astronomical, right? It's like, how do you find out like where the most meaningful opportunities are in like an entire space of a topic, right? And the only way to do that is to get the data.
So
You walk
are
us
you
through that in a high level? That's fascinating.
So the way that we would pull out I'm actually going to have a post about this in a couple of weeks on how we pull out the data at scale. But we basically have we have a scripting server, and part of it is we can just like rotate between like an API that pulls keyword level data. So like all the 10 ranking pages that are ranking for a particular keyword, and then you just flip it back around, and then you pull the domain like the URL level data, like all the URLs that those top 10 pages that are ranking for a keyword, the other keywords they're also ranking for. You flip it around again. And then you pull all the top 10 URLs for those pages that are ranking for the new refactored list of keywords that you have, and then you flip around again, right, and pull all the additional ranking keywords. So it's just a scripting process to be able to like dump keyword level data out from APIs like super quick, and then we like roll them through some n-grams. And then we look at for like high level kind of concepts, and then we like back into what the content strategy is.
So it's arrays inside of arrays inside of arrays when you're processing stuff. I love that.
That's we just constantly refactor SERP data more or less. Just pass it back and forth into itself to just like expand it out, right? So you start, it's like the same metrics for or the same philosophy for like seed metrics in the way that like search engines crawl, right? Like you start with a thing, and then you find out all the places that that's connected to until you have this like little ball of interrelation of all of these topics.
So what are you losing in the process? Because we were talking about on the pre-call, you were talking about how there are times when we just don't want to automate. It's just the wrong execution. So I read a lot of SEOs posting about how important it is to look at the SERPs, and you're kind of skipping that by scripting.
This is keyword research. This is not looking at SERPs. This is purely for understanding the like keyword opportunity, right? Like the topic opportunities. Looking at SERPs, I think personally, is about understanding like intent and SERP features, right? It's looking at like the different things that are in each of the positions, not like what are all the keywords out there and what are all the pages ranking for them, so that you can see what kind of content to create, if that makes sense.
Have you thought of building a tool to do that too?
In the intent thing, we actually have like a super crazy thing that's like top secret on that like it may be out in like a month or two that is like very local specific, and it should be really interesting.
Huh. I saw you scratching the back of your neck like, shit, I can't tell them about this now.
Yeah. You can like find some stuff on Twitter about it between me and AJ Cohen, but it's not explicit, but you can you can find it if you want to look around.
Yeah, that's
so with a lot of these processes, are you doing them by hand first, or are you just like kind of diving right into automation?
No, this is how we do SEO. And so we're looking at ways to be able to like where we can automate things and where it makes sense to be able to like make these processes more accessible to a greater audience so that we can have more analysts doing better SEO, right?
Got it. Okay. That's super cool. So share with us some losses and what you learned along the way that made you want to not automate things.
Yeah, I mean, the only like loss I can tell you about is like when we like tried to like launch our like software product Locatium to do like GMB change notifications. we didn't like think about how like the system we were architecting it on top of could change, like the Google Places API, right? How do you see what's on the front end of a Google Maps and then what you see on the back end via GMB? And then they changed their API pricing around, and it made it like insane for anybody that wasn't like like a large app that's making millions of calls, and the API budget is a huge part of their infrastructure costs, which like wasn't ours. It like took all the margin out of it, right? And so don't automate if you can't understand like what the dependencies are of the systems you're architecting, because that can get you screwed. And don't do it if the human brain is better at it. That's just like a general philosophy. There's a lot of stuff the human brain is just better at.
I'm reading a really good book called Range by David Epstein right now. And apparently the things that humans are really good at versus machines, like machines can beat humans at chess because machines can memorize millions and millions and millions of positions on a board, whereas humans are really good at understanding the higher level strategy on top of that and can process all of like the data that a machine can give you. A human can process it better than a machine. How have you kind of thought through that, and what kind of buckets are you putting in humans doing, and what buckets are you not?
Yeah, so I want humans to do strategic work, right? In SEO, to me, the like high level stuff is all strategy. It's being able to see the forest through the trees, right? And so there's so much stuff that's not that's like part and parcel of the day-to-day SEO like work in the business of running an agency, and all of that stuff happens when people aren't automating. They're doing that by hiring like really low wage labor and either exploiting them, outsourcing to the Philippines, or just doing all this other stuff to be able to account for the cost, right? And whatever your kind of personal opinions are on that, like that wasn't what we wanted to do. And so the solution is to like figure out what we're talking about, right? Figure out what the humans do and automate the rest.
Love it. Tell us about the tools that you're using in-house and the technologies that you can share.
Yeah, so I mean, we're like AWS, EC2, Docker. Language wise, we use Node and we use Python. We do a lot of stuff via Slack integration. We use G Sheets for some stuff. We don't do like app script or anything like that, but we use like G Sheets as like an interface for some things, like a front end. Like the first version of the like scale API keyword extractor thing was using a Google Sheet as an input, just because passing like flat files of large scale data back and forth doesn't make a lot of sense. We have some stuff on BigQuery, some stuff not on BigQuery. We're moving everything over to BigQuery for data warehousing, because just if you like have a lot of data and are storing stuff, there are storage costs for like active and cold storage are really, really good. It makes Google Data Studio reporting faster. And if we need to do any report like visualizations or whatever, we'll generally do that in Data Studio. Occasionally, we will do some rendering via Python with Matplotlib.
And you were saying you love pandas, right?
We do a lot of pandas work for sure. I'm like not a super ninja dev myself, but like when I first started learning like programming languages for SEO back in like 2011, 2012, it was JavaScript and Python for sure. And like in-house, like again, my job was like analytics mostly, right? Like that's what most of in-house SEO is. So something to be able to do like data munging and work with data frames or like sheets is way more valuable than something that can like do automation of processes. And in JavaScript was not as good at doing a lot of that stuff also in 2011 and 2012 as like the stuff that we're using it for now, it wasn't what we were using it for then.
And for folks listening, when you're saying JavaScript, you're talking about Node primarily, right?
No, just like, well, I mean, yeah, like straight front end JavaScript and Node.
Okay, so vanilla JS and Node.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sweet.
jQuery, right? Like it was like primarily front end stuff back then.
Yeah. Have we already gone over the loss? What's your biggest automation loss? Can you share any fails?
Yeah, we launched a software product and then shut it down because we couldn't afford the infrastructure. Or the infrastructure costs kill the margins. So I mean, I think that's pretty fair.
I'm gonna cut that out. Don't worry. So
I mean, I'm happy to make fun of myself again. It's okay.
When did I want to learn about how slash when you got into machine learning and NLP, like when did that all start for you? Was it like in the past 2 years or farther back or?
Oh, farther back for sure. Not like the NLP part of it, not like the way that we kind of talk about those things in 2020, but like the way that Google understands like topics and content structure, I think was becoming like a very apparent thing post Panda, right? Like they've been in like all the Panda update rollouts and a lot of like their core updates. I think it's just been like the change about how they understand content has been like very clear for a long time. They've been publishing about it, right? They speak at like symposiums on information retrieval. It's just, it's there to be seen, right? And so I think that recently where it's kind of been something that I've been more focused on as the barriers to entry have become a lot easier. There's just like a lot of easy ways to kind of break into a lot of this stuff because a lot of the libraries have already been written, right? Like the NLTK library for Python is like a good example of an NLP library that just is there and open source and exists and is maintained by people doing good stuff. Or like Spacey, that's like a C-based machine learning, NLP-based library. It's a little more expensive, but like it's supposed to be like faster, but it's supposed to be easy to use. Stuff like that. BERT, we can talk about BERT, right? Like, but like one of my big things right now is to try to find out how easy it is to deploy BERT models for some of our stuff, because like so the thing that you connected me to Andrea for the WikiLinks corpus is we're going to take WikiLinks corpus. We're going to spend a month on engramming the whole thing on an EC2 instance, and then we're going to start scoring it, and like we're going to start figuring out how we can incorporate that as one end of a BERT model, and then like the content on like in like a content silo on a site on the other end. So like how does like Google's core understanding of old structured data around like the ngram for the topic relate to like that the content in the content silo on the site? I can only talk about this theoretically right now because we have not like kicked anything off, but people keep telling me that it's something that should be able to be done. So
that sounds kind of similar to how his WordPress plugin works, right, Jordan?
I wouldn't say similar. I think it allows like
plugin. Can you like hit me up with the link via email?
Yeah, it's.
I don't want to like. We don't like do WordPress or whatever, but I totally am interested in.
Yeah, and he also built custom implementation so that you wouldn't need it to go through WordPress. But basically, it enables you to build a knowledge graph around you and your entity. So you can
it's like the custom knowledge graph stuff. That's very cool. I know some people that are doing that. That makes sense with the paper that he sent me actually.
Okay, cool.
Because it was like on like deep on like understanding deep ontologies, which is like very much a knowledge graph thing.
How have you used these to drive ROI for clients?
Yeah, so our content strategy is almost exclusively based around like the way that we think about like content and language. And so like almost all of like the wins I share on Twitter are from our content strategy versus technical SEO, content and links. And so one of the next things that we're going to do is try to apply some automation processes around our link building, not like the outreach or the prospecting or anything like that, but the research. We do a lot of automation around research. We do a lot of research. I don't know about y'all or other people that are doing SEO stuff, but SEO for us is like a research discipline.
So when you say can you share with us how you think about, when you started that answer, you said it's all tied to how we think about content and...
So the wins, our wins, like how we use NLP is all tied to how we deploy content strategies, right? And so like, are you familiar with the tool ClearScope.io?
Yep.
Do you know Bernard?
Yep. I don't describe it, yeah.
Yeah, Bernard is great. I was able to pick his brain over some beers on Wednesday. And so like, the core understanding of sophisticated NLP for me in content strategy started actually with talking to Bernard before they moved ClearScope to Austin when I met him in San Francisco for part of Bay Area search. Yeah. And so we use ClearScope for a lot of our content strategy. And the reason that I want to build the like BERT thing, the BERT WikiLinks thing, is to do, like I'm talking about looking at a content silo on a site, it's like how to do it on the research side, right? Where ClearScope is on the content creation side, like how do you write about something very specific? This is how to understand how other people are talking about something very specific. So if you were to use like ClearScope credits for it or Market News or something, it'd be like thousands of dollars, right? Because they have a much more sophisticated process and their costs are really high. I want something like quick and dirty that can scale.
Do you tend to lean that way when you're building internal tools, where you just want to build something robust in that it won't break, simple in that you can jump in and tweak it if you need to, efficient and cheap? Is that your decision-making matrix, or how do you think about things?
Oh yeah, I want to keep infrastructure costs down, right? Like we don't want technical debt. I don't want to be a developer shop. We would need to be thinking about how we scale the resources to do some of this stuff, because it's not like operational or marketing driven functions. It's custom development,
Yeah.
right? So like actual hiring of engineers.
Yeah. Huh.
So that was a big thing of our tech ops offsite that we just had, is like, what's our approach going to be to like feature improvement in technical debt?
I often think, Jordan and I often think of things in terms of our execution. We go as simple as possible oftentimes, and we try and keep the processes as discrete as possible. So it's like a simple process that's integrated and built with the simplest tools at the lowest cost possible. And it doesn't have huge scope typically. It's like a simple tool that does a simple thing, but it might save us, an hour to 4 hours a month. And the more of those we can stack up, the more time we can spend on strategy and less time on just kind of doing the work, which I think is the goal for most SEOs, right? Is that how you think? Although you were saying that you don't like doing it, you don't like using automation to automate processes. You like to do it more in other ways.
For like research and stuff, right? We don't do a lot of repetitive tasks. The ones we do, we definitely would want to automate those away.
Do you want to share your screen and talk us through the tool? I also have, I have both your blog posts and I have your GitHub repo open.
Did you just call it a GitHub repo?
Yeah, I'm lame. Isn't it though?
GIF?
Isn't it? Isn't this a repo?
Interview is over.
What did I do wrong, man?
It's GIF.
No, I said GitHub repo.
It's GitHub.
No, really?
GIF. It's GitHub. It's not GitHub and GIF, bro. This is a deal breaker.
So I had no idea that there was a GIF Git argument or a flame war potential. Excuse me, Shadow. What up, Doc? Oh my God. He has strong feelings about this. Apparently, GitHub. Okay, sorry.
GitHub.
So, mic drop. So tell us about your tool. Where do you want me to go?
Yeah, we can leave it on the documentation, but the net here is, so we do, everybody knows about Lighthouse and doing Lighthouse reporting on JavaScript, right? JavaScript and client-side rendering is a huge pain point for us. We work with sites that are generally complicated, not necessarily because their businesses are complicated, but even if it's like an engineering-driven startup, they're pushing the boundaries of front-end web technology. And so looking at Lighthouse on template-driven sites, like looking at sync URLs is bad, right? It gives you a single slice of the view, right? And most of the times, those templates are powering thousands of pages or hundreds of pages. And so we want to be able to look at the aggregated metrics of particularly JavaScript, but the general performance metrics of the template as a whole, right? So you can see how individual resources or parts of that template are behaving in a meaningful way and across templates. So you can look at like the core business value of it, right? Like you can say, oh, your JavaScript is really slow, right? Or you have all these JavaScript packages that are downloading entirely every time. But until you can like kind of quantify it on this, how that performance affects the entire site, right? It's easy to kind of look at them as isolated examples.
So in our pre-call, you were talking about Lighthouse versus Pagespeed Insights.
Mm-hmm.
Do you care to elaborate on that, on why you decided to go with the Lighthouse reports?
Yeah, so Lighthouse powers Pagespeed Insights. My understanding of it is that you get much more granular data back on the Lighthouse side. But even if that wasn't the case, the reason that we were building it the way that we built it is that we wanted to build a Node.js Puppeteer backend performance testing stack, because that's what Google uses for rendering the web, is they use Node.js plus Puppeteer. And so we wanted the excuse to build that infrastructure component, right? And so we can use that for like running a lot of this stuff to be rendering the scripts, etc. And then we can also be running, like hitting Puppeteer URLs with Puppeteer and be measuring performance from the Puppeteer instance, like the Puppeteer render of that URL. And so that was kind of the reason that we made that determination, is just to get the Puppeteer Node.js stack up. We like working with APIs in general.
So you built this as an excuse to have a Puppeteer stack built up.
Mm-hmm.
I did the same thing because I just knew that I had to go down that road. Like I needed to do crawls behind logins in a weird situation where the sites had cookies that reset every night, and so I knew that I needed Puppeteer because I couldn't rely on other tools that I was considering.
So building our Node.js Puppeteer instance was essentially free for us, because building this tool means that we're going to amortize the cost of doing any performance testing on any future audits we ever do.
Which makes sense.
Now we have the thing, we can use it for other things, and the business case is just already taken care of.
I love that. I woke up, I don't think this is original at all, but I woke up, and again, you're dealing with way different scale than I am. Most of my clients have sites that only have whatever 50 to 70,000 pages. They're not
But you're full stack, so it's slightly different.
Yeah. So like I was thinking about using Screaming Frog, exporting to Drive, exporting the results to Drive, and then when it goes into Drive, using AppScript to pull the results into a sheet, and as it's doing that, applying timestamps to the results, so you'd have periodic tracking of performance, and it would pull in all the Pagespeed Insights at the same time. I wouldn't want to do it on all the content clearly, but for different. Although for you, I love how you're thinking about this, how you're looking at it.
You can set this up on a cron job, man. This can run monthly.
Yeah,
it has the ability specifically to run monthly.
Yeah, I love that. That's super cool. Do you want to talk us through setup and how to use it? And
yeah, you want to roll to let's go to the other side of it, actually. So first, there's like the back end. Oh, sorry, I was going to say, no, go to the report. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I think it's easier to talk about how it works when looking at the kind of end result of it.
Okay.
So this is an end result of the report. You can, like, these are the roll-ups of all the individual templates. You can kind of drill down into any of these to see the particular URLs that make up that aggregated metric, and then drill down to see the individual URL performance reports, right? So this is really just like 10,000 foot view. You can drill all the way down on it. And so where this started with is, like we were talking about what not to automate, right? And so the main thing that this uses to get anywhere is a series of URLs associated with a label, right? Category in this case. And so like doing that right there with a person is like 5 to 10 minutes, right? Versus figuring out how to like scrape a website, like we were talking about in the pre-call, being able to determine different templates when the URL structure is the same. Big problem. It's a problem for Target in this example report, actually. And so this wouldn't have been able to happen without doing it manually. And then so you have that manual creation there, right, which takes a person way less time with way less infrastructure to do than a human. We have a Slack bot that works to take any commands or info, like a file in this case, via our Slack instance, because that's where we're a remote agency. That's where we do most of our stuff. Bot takes it, goes over to our scripting server, our scripting EC2 instance, runs the Lighthouse scripts in order to grab all the information, stores it in Cloud SQL in a series of different data tables. The data table setup is particularly designed in that way so that we can append this to other stuff, right? Like we want to be able to add, like I was talking about, like native Puppeteer crawl, native Puppeteer render metrics in and some potential other things from GSC, right? So we want this warehouse so it can be bolted onto things. And then we visualize it in Data Studio. And that's the net of it at a high level.
Out of curiosity, what opted you to go into like the traditional SQL database rather than BigQuery?
Yeah, it was just like not a hard requirement on my end. And so just a good example of if I'm going to be hands off and like let my engineers build things however they want to, I need to be like hyper specific on what I'm looking for in order, like in our database and data warehousing. This is actually the only thing we have that is not on BigQuery. So, and I have a user story out right now to move the infrastructure to BigQuery.
Got it. So when you're uploading, I feel like such a tool for asking all these like granular questions, but the way, so your Slack bot's called Jarvis. I love the name. Explain to me how it works. Like I don't understand how the file upload into Jarvis turns in, how Jarvis pushes the data straight through. Is it directly connecting the Slack API to?
No, Jarvis is Dockerized.
Okay.
So this is where we use Docker for scripting.
Can you talk about that? Because this is the edge of my understanding. Like, do you?
I am not. That is a Sam question. That is my JavaScript engineers.
Okay. So I'm pretty comfortable with and then magic happens.
the net on the Docker instance is to make it so that we can be using Jarvis to communicate with our scripting instance. And so that it can run the scripting and communicate input and output back from the server into the Slack bot.
Have you thought of turning this into a time series?
So it is a time series, right? Like you can change this is set up, it has 2 days worth of data in it, right? You can run it chronologically. We just don't have the visualizations done for the time series yet because I released it as soon as we built it. Yeah. So we're just like implementing this into our processes and stuff right now.
Because I see that as super, super easy. Just copy the chart and then change this breakdown to the category that you want to visualize. And then maybe pick 3 or 4 of them that you could visualize. And then you could show a couple at a time and overlay them to see if there are trends.
Yeah, I would actually probably say for the time series, it would be something like an individual one per page, only because that way we could get like the time series for all the various metrics of an individual template. But this is like, I haven't really put any thought into why one would be better than the other. So that's like, there's nothing to that in any way, shape, or form. And the only reason why I have no good answer to like, why not a time series?
Yeah.
It's just like, why is everything a bar chart? Because it's easy to do drill downs and measure like a bucket. They're like all histograms more or less, right? Because it is the distribution of like performance from a bunch of different things.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's super cool. Let's see, back to our questions. What did you and the team learn along the way building the tool? What were some
that our sprints for development are awesome, that we can do it really well if we're really nimble. We're like just working out having a dedicated like tech ops team, right? So like a lot of the things that we worked out is like around like user stories and stuff like that and scoping, not really about the like development process or like how it works or anything. Mm-hmm. The thing that I learned about this is I got some good feedback on like the user experience of the report, like the GDS report, which I thought was kind of funny only because it's like it's just like a data visualization to me, right? It's like it's the output, and I'm happy to like struggle to use it however possible because like getting to there was the hard point, right? Mm-hmm. And I can see how that's like a really poor experience for embedding this report into like audits and stuff like that, right? Like, and so one of the things that I'm going to do for like all of this text here is all written by engineers, just as like an example. And so like having our like content team or myself or whatever going in and doing the like page 1 help page for some of our like GDS reports or visualizations, and then writing the copy of things and stuff to make them more palatable for like a non-engineer based user group.
I didn't really get into this, and I apologize. I forgot to keep going through the report. So it's basically pulling through all of the Lightspeed metrics, just visualized page by page.
Not all of them, man. So like for Target, like a single URL, the JSON blob of it in terms of the Lighthouse report is like 50,000 lines or something.
Oh my God. One page, one URL?
Yeah, one URL. So we did not take everything.
Wow.
So this is what I'm saying. Like, I don't think the Pagespeed Insights API gives you all of that granular reporting. So like, go all the way to the end. Go to page like 7 or 8.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so it didn't have it passed the font display audit, right? Like we have to figure out how we want to handle that, but it like passed the flag, right? So like that's why there's no data in there.
Okay.
But you can see here, like we're pulling third-party usage of particular assets, right? If you flip back to the previous page, you can see that we're looking at like the JavaScript metrics in particular, right? Like, so I think it's really telling that like, look at how fast the processing of scripts is happening on target site. But like, yeah, look at that. Look at that.
That's
11
massive.
seconds to evaluate them. Terrible, 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 terrible.
So is this in your wheelhouse where you'll look at 11.3 seconds and go and be able to look at the JSUs and within a couple days be able to get them in a very different place? Or is this?
Yeah, I mean, we would just call out what's like the resource hogs, right? Like this is like where it's like we can't be the decision makers on like what you pull and what not, because there could be meaningful business reasons that they have all of those things and they have to run their own internal engineering sprints in order to sort that all out with their stakeholders, right? But like we 100% care about like the timings on script evaluation and like render time and all of that stuff very deeply. We're like way deep into client-side rendering, and like crawlability and renderability, indexability of sites is like a core part of what we work with on like a week-to-week basis. And so like, I don't know if you've paid attention to this, but like Google, Martin Splitt, developer advocate at Google on the webmasters team, has been like explicit at conferences about how there's a render budget to go along with the crawl budget, just as like an example. And so that 11-second script evaluation is an insane time to have Google be out there trying to evaluate scripts before it renders them, right? Like you could be having a possible timeout.
Yeah, okay. That's insane. I feel like when I look at Lighthouse reports, and on some platforms I have a sense of how to improve, and on others it's super hard and beyond the scope of what's possible. Meaning it's locked, the platform's locked down, which is super frustrating. And every time I look at one of these where that's the case, it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, so I mean, so this is probably a proprietary platform, right? This is Target. Like they're definitely not like rolling their own enterprise CMS, right? Like they may have custom connectors and stuff, but they're using off-the-shelf stuff that they're customizing. And so they probably don't have the ability to change some of this stuff. Actually, go back to page 1. I can tell you a funny story.
Yeah.
So this is like a perfect example, these two charts on why it's important to look at performance. If you notice, the e-commerce side of the site is screaming. It's screaming. But boy, those locator and location pages are dragging wind. And that's because in mixed retail businesses like Target, right, the e-commerce side is like really, they like control the digital experience, right? So like the digital execs on like the e-com side, PDP shelf pages and all that stuff are like faster, right? Like more links, better internal links. It's like a core part of their business. And on the other side, it's just like, we're local SEOs, you know, we're just going to like get our citations and have our NAP and do all of this stuff. And like, at the end of the day, their locator and location pages are just dragging ass, man. Like, whoo.
Yeah. So,
and it's just like, that's likely a business problem, right? It's not a dev problem. It's likely a business problem.
Can I ask you an e-commerce question? I don't know if you deal with this stuff. So, an SEO told me a strategy the other day that I thought was really interesting. He was saying that one tactic that you can do to improve indexation inside categories is, so you have a category, it's got 12 products. On each of those PDPs, you do internal linkings and you treat each of those products inside the category almost like it's paginated content. So you go from product A to product B, from B to C, D to E, E to F, F to G, and when you get to the end, you link back up to the parent. And you have breadcrumbs doing that too. You have all your breadcrumbs that are going up and down the categorization chain. And I had not heard of that as a strategy before. Is that something that you've ever employed?
I mean, it just seems like what you would be getting out of employing like a widget, right? Like a cross-sell, upsell widget. Like if you check out somebody like Best Buy's, like their any of their PDPs, right? They have like people also bought, you may also like related products. Those are all driven. They drive a lot of revenue, but they are also internal link plays, like explicitly in a lot of instances.
And you're pro or con? You got to have them?
Internal links always on an e-commerce site. Like, I mean, so think about this at the scale of Walmart. Walmart has, I forget the number, and I'm going to say something stupid. I want to say they have something like 6 million SKUs, and I want to say maybe I'm under there. Maybe it's like 16 million. But so like, whatever that million number of SKUs is, right? Like, it's hard to get Google to crawl all those things.
Sure.
Right? Because they're deep into taxonomy. You have categories and subcategories. Not everything is linked to the same. It's hard to get internal links to every piece of the page if you want them to be relevant and you're trying to like generate revenue, right? The ability to get pages like all the pages on a large site index, particularly a large e-commerce retailer, is very challenging.
Yeah. Fascinating. Let's see. So what else can we jump into with the tool? Like what did you think you were going to be able to do that through the dev process, like it just became beyond the realm of possible? Was there anything that fell into that category, or anything that you were surprised that you were able to pull off that you didn't plan on up front?
Oh, I was totally surprised at the speed that this thing got that we were able to crank this thing out for sure. I think that the thing that like became too much to get implemented, this is like about writing user stories and stuff like that and making sure everyone's on the same page. But the GDS report creation, you have to like set up some of the like data sources in GDS for it to populate the template. And so we wanted to have that all be automated, but that's like, again, part of like the Puppeteer process and everything, right? Like you have to like you have to trigger pages and stuff and then share a URL. And so it just became like its own process that wasn't worth like keeping in the sprint, right? It's like core to making it work.
Huh. Let's see. So what else are you using Puppeteer for?
Oh, we're going to use it for a lot. So pulling stuff out of Search Console, right? Like pulling not like keyword data or anything you can get via the API there, but like a lot of their other reports, like the index status report and stuff like that. Let's see. Performance testing on its own. Using the URL inspector, getting it to run URL inspector, like bulk URL inspector reports in GSC and then pull that data out. I think that'll be really interesting because the problem with the URL inspector right now is that like you can see like in terms of like canonical or Google chose different canonical, you can like see that that's happening in the URL inspector report, but you can't like see it across like a type of URL, or you can't like look at like a URL and then the one it also chose as a canonical like side by side, right? You can't do any comparisons with the data at all. It's just kind of in a vacuum. And so figuring out a way to make that kind of actionable is, I think, going to be a really important thing. And again, since it's behind a Search Console, it's like a logged in Search Console view. It requires Puppeteer or Selenium.
Yeah, and I shared with you that I was building a tool to do it with Puppeteer as well, and I ran into CAPTCHA issues. And I would love to connect with you about that because I would love to do something similar to what you're talking about.
Was it CAPTCHAs for IP address, or was it CAPTCHAs for like the crawling, like the automation?
So I logged in. I typed in a URL, Puppeteer typed in the URL into the inspect tool, clicked the inspect button.
How did the mouse move?
It then
like it moved the mouse and clicked the inspect button.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I didn't move the mouse to that spot. It just
So Puppeteer is good because you can mimic a human, right? And so that's why I was asking about like if it was the crawling, like do you need proxies, or is it like the human mimicry?
I wasn't sure, and I had it do timeouts too. I implemented a whole bunch of delays along the way, thinking that it was like doing things too quickly.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I had a bunch of timeouts that I did, and there are these Puppeteer. I'm sure you found these. There are these Puppeteer libraries that are like extra safe or extra secure.
Yeah.
In theory, can get around the detection, but it didn't work for me. And basically, what it would do is it would submit the first URL. It would go through the whole process. This is in the index. Are you sure you want to request again? ? clicks that button, it then would submit it, then show me the report. And then when I tried to do another URL, that's when maybe it was like 5 deep, it started to throw up CAPTCHAs, and then those wouldn't go away. So I started trying to figure out if I could loop through different user agents and use a different user agent each time I did it. And I just couldn't figure out the solution. So I'd love to pick your brain on that off the call. And of course, we at Agency Automators don't recommend that you break Google's terms of service with anything you do in the realm of SEO or otherwise. But damn, isn't it fun to play with a dummy login? Okay, Python, Node, AppScript. How do you pick a tool?
Usually if it's something that's going to be like web-based, it's Node for us. If it's something that's like data manipulation or something like that, then it's Python. It's pretty simple. We'll just generally choose pandas for data manipulation. We just have more experience with it among more people, and it also is just like a more robust library. M3 or whatever it is, I looked at, there's a JavaScript library that is like a version of pandas. It just is not supposed to be as good, and again, like I would have to learn JavaScript, and Brian would have to learn better JavaScript.
And are you not using AppScript because of timeouts and runtimes won't work on an enterprise level for the types of stuff you're doing?
So we have like one thing that uses AppScript that I'm going to release next week. I think it's a thing that it just does like a bunch of branded searches. You use like a G Sheet. It does it like runs a bunch of searches and then lets you know if the image URL has changed. So it's just like to check and see if your like the main knowledge graph photo has changed for a local business. So you can put like, like 1,000, 5,000 branded searches or whatever in the G Sheet, run the script, and it'll give you the image URL and alert you for changes. So that makes sense there. We try to do an ngram script in AppScript, or an ngram script in AppScript, and it timed out for sure. Just couldn't do it fast enough.
How many? Must be a lot of keywords then.
No, it wasn't that many. 10,000?
Jordan and I have both done that, but our tool isn't sophisticated enough for what you would need. But is that a fair description, Jordan?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many rows of data we were dealing with. I mean, how many rows are you dealing with? Is it thousands? Is it millions?
When we moved it off of Sheets, it was in the like tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands. Okay. Cool. We've already talked about Jarvis, so we don't really need to go through that. So this was a question from another guest of ours, Dale. He's the founder of a brand newly released, it's just on Product Hunt now, called Jepto.
Yeah, I know about their Data Studio GMB Insights connector.
Yeah. Great dude. Fantastic dude. He's been crazy helpful to both of us. His question was, can you talk about how to identify pages that differ from the average of their URL classifications? I'm not sure.
Human brain, man. Human brain.
Okay. All right.
So this is one of those things that's like right, like automated ways to write title tags and stuff like that. This is something that you could like theoretically automate, but it would require you to like analyze all of the content on the page and compare it to other pages of the same URL type, right? Like it's just like, wow, that seems like a lot of work versus like a human looking at two similar URLs and being like, nope, those are different templates.
But you're also, so how do you scale dealing with those types of challenges? I mean, when you're talking about 6 million SKUs at Walmart, I mean, you have
like
clients that have that many?
They probably have like 10 templates.
Yeah. Okay.
6 million SKUs is one template. It's one PDP. The rest of the categories that make that up is 3 templates, right? It's like a category, a shelf, and a subcat, right? It's not. That's why looking at them with like multiple examples in the template is the solution to it, and why a human can do it pretty easily, right? Because there's not millions of types of URL templates. Man, imagine being the engineers that have to manage that shit. Woo!
So if you're a small site and you've got 100 SKUs and you've put a huge amount of effort and everything is manual in terms of how you're doing your page titles, meta descriptions, the way that the site is built is crazy performant. Your internal linking is perfect. You've got a shadow on your side. Get down, dude. This is obnoxious. This is the first time he starred in any of our hangouts. It's kind of,
Awesome.
yeah, he's a great dog, but he's kind of a pain in the ass. But can small sites win? I mean, when I'm hearing that everything's templatized on a big site, I know it's a link game, but this.
Well, but everything is templatized on a big site because they can't manually enter products. That's like not a thing. Right? Like they have to get product inventory from an ERP system, right? And their merchandisers have to work in an independent system to make their supply chain work, right? Like the only way that they can make the business work and have a site that is keeping live inventory up is through a connector between an enterprise resource planning thing and an inventory management thing and like the e-com shop, right? Yeah. And so like the SMBs don't have, medium-sized businesses even don't have that challenge, right? And so where their opportunity is not to try to index 1 million SKUs. Their opportunity is to try to like have really like a template that can go after like a subset of those and doesn't need to like make it so that you can adequately link to 6 million pages in the taxonomy, right? Like it's their challenge is it's really easy and they have to go build links.
Yeah. Huh, that's fascinating. And so I'm in Bikeland, right? And in Bikeland, REI started selling a product line called Bontrager in March of 2019. They're kind of like the Amazon of outdoor sports. And at the time, I was pretty afraid that it was going to negatively impact a number of my clients who sell that specific brand. And throughout the 2019, we saw revenue go up for pretty much all of our clients. And then we found that Bontrager revenue has in fact been negatively impacted. So I'm looking for these ways of chiseling into to get that back, to get that revenue back. So it's like, this is a challenge that I'm facing right now, day to day or week to week.
But you have products that solve that, right? This is where you being full stack makes that something that's solvable, right? You can do nurture campaigns on cart abandonment and stuff like that. The ability to connect the like entire life cycle and the like social and email marketing together easily is not something that REI can do, right? They have a bigger list for sure, and they can develop prettier graphics and all of that stuff, but it just takes them longer, and then they have to build a process, and then if their process breaks, they can't do anything.
Yeah. And I found that to be the case. That when we built Bike Basket, it pretty much instantly grew revenues for clients in the 6 to 8% range. Bike Basket is a cart abandonment tool that we built that's bike industry specific, exactly. That works on the platform that most of the e-commerce shops in the bike space are using. Cool. How are we doing for time? Jordan, are you tracking?
I am tracking. We are just coming up.
We're coming up? Okay. Yeah. Dan, this has been amazing having you on. What are you working on now? What can you share? What are you excited about? I don't want to do the what's coming up in 2020 blog post with linking to 17,000 different concepts, but what are you stoked on?
Yeah, so we have an LP process that we're kicking off next week, and then we have like a really interesting public-facing thing that's like going to be a marketing push for us. That's going to be really interesting. That is going to be getting kicked off next week too. This is both on the tech ops side, both on like the automation and development side.
That's super cool. When you release it, can you ping me on Twitter?
Oh yeah, there'll be big pushes around. So the NLP thing is like an internal thing. I don't know that we're going to end up releasing it until we like have something there, right? Like I don't know that we're going to open source it. We have to figure out like we're just moving on building it, right? So it's like that we have the investigation done. It's just going to be getting the kind of first parts of it next week. So I can't tell you if it's going to be like a free thing or like a paid product or something that we like use internally until it's a paid product. But the public facing thing will be a big launch. I'll share it with you before it goes live so you can tell me what you think.
Cool. Jordan, any last questions?
I don't think so. It was all very insightful, Dan. Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. And if people want to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
At Dan Leibson on the Twitters.
And I'll just show everybody the proper spelling.
Yes, DANLEI, B as in boy, SON.
Awesome. Dan, thanks so much to everyone out there. We really appreciate you watching this. And for those of you on Twitter, Dan has some amazing gardening photos that he's been sharing. I know it's like way off topic, but if you're looking for inspiration to build an organic garden, that's like reason number 2000 to follow him on Twitter. It's been amazing watching you learn how to garden, and yeah, he's crazy.
I'm actually sending, Jamie Alberico, right? Like,
yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I'm sending Jamie some seeds. So I told her I would send her a list of all my open seed packs. So I just have like a ton of seed packs on my office, as you can see.
Everybody, thanks for watching this episode, and we're going to tie it up now. Until next time, thanks for watching Agency Automators. Dan, you rock. Jordan, you rock. Everybody take care.